this mountain the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wines, of rich food filled with marrow, of well-aged wines strained clear. And he will destroy on this mountain the shroud that is cast over all peoples, the sheet that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death forever. Then the Lord God will wipe away the tears from all faces, and the disgrace of his people he will take away from all the earth. For the Lord has spoken. It will be said on that day, Lo, this is our God. We have waited for him, so that he might save us. This is the Lord for whom we have waited. Let us be glad and rejoice in his salvation. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, Where have you laid him? And they said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, See how he loved him. But some of them said, Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, already there is a stench, because he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, Unbind him and let him go.
May we bow together in prayer. Holy God, we are yours this day, so use us as you will. Out of all the words that are being spoken and heard, may it be your living word that stays with us, and all the other words, all the other stuff, we let slip away. Amen. There's a church in the heart of London, England, called St. Martin of the Fields, and it has a long history in Christendom. I introduced it at 8:30 service as a spiritual and meditative edifice to which people will often make a pilgrimage. I was informed between the first and second services, but they have a cafe in the basement that serves hard liquor, so that might have something to do with it too. Since I've never been there, I will assume that is true. Maybe it's the fine wine, the strained clear wine that Isaiah spoke of today. On the wall in that church, there is a stone tablet with letters etched into that stone tablet, been there for over 200 years, that reads, By order of the vestry, no one is to bring any more bodies into the basement of the church. The foundations of the church have been disrupted because of so many bodies. The stability of the building is being curiously impaired. No one is to bring a body into the basement for burial without the express approval of the vestry. Well now, we have had our basement issues here at Peakland, but I dare say we have not had that issue. And there's some comfort and there's some discomfort in that whole idea. There's comfort in the fact, in the spiritual sense, that every church rests on the foundation of the saints that have gone before. I mean, you and I are who we are because someone proclaimed the good news of Jesus Christ and we responded to it. Our church is organized not just from a blank slate. We inherited some of the way we do things around here. Peakland has a culture. Everybody, believers, has a culture. We like to think we created that culture, and indeed we did, but it's also true that we inherited that culture. We do stand, our foundation is upon the souls of the saints that have gone before us. On the other hand, sometimes culture needs changing. On the other hand, there is a mystery to the whole idea of All Saints' Day. And maybe that's why we only do this once a year. This is a powerful service. This is a service which has a lot of meaning and emotion. It's also a service that has a lot of mystery to it. We have brought the spiritual presence of the saints, both dead and living, and placed them on the pew beside us. They speak to us from the spot they used to take. And on Sunday morning, they speak to us from the empty chair, from the empty seat. And they speak to us when we say our amens. For a lot of us, we can hear the echo of their amen resonate within our own hearts. I don't know about you, but the All Saints Sunday is one of the most comforting and one of the most disruptive services of the year for me. It is comforting because it reminds me that there are lives that are worth remembering, and with that memory, I bring honor to people whom I love and who have loved me. It's disruptive in that it also reminds me that not every life should be remembered. I was trying to think of a softer way to say that. I'm aware in my own life that there are things that I hope you remember when I am gone. And I hope there are things that you won't, to tell you the truth. The mistakes that happen along the way. Family life being what it is, there are things that I hope my children will hold on to long after I'm gone and be thankful for. And there are things that I hope they will forget. There is comfort. There is a mystery to what we do today. We read these words from Isaiah. On this mountain, God will destroy the shroud that enfolds all people, the sheet that covers all nations. God will swallow up death forever. Most scholars agree that this part of Isaiah we read is at least 3,000 years old, much older than St. Martin of the Fields. It describes a gracious and happy future for people of faith, depicting a time when God provides a feast for people who are too well aware of famine. And the feast will be a tremendous celebration of a significant act. God will destroy the shroud that is cast. God will swallow up death. Have you ever thought of death as a shroud? Not the pall, that gold-colored cloth that we lay over a casket that's got the cross of Christ on it that reminds us of what it means to die in the faith. But death itself as something that gets a hold of you, that leaches life from life itself. Literal meaning of shroud is wrapping. The implication is death itself, both its inevitability and our anticipation of that inevitability gets such a hold on us that we are wrapped up by it, that we are bound by it. I was driving to work a while back, listening to the radio, heard a commercial come on. For the life of me, I can't remember what product was being touted. The only thing I really remember is how the commercial ended. It was a woman's voice, and I assume she's what we would call a studio musician, that she was simply the hired voice to be the radio presence. And whatever she was selling, she concluded by saying, "We put the art in artificial." And it got me to thinking, and maybe I'm overthinking it, but it used to be that when you went to a restaurant, you'd go to a restaurant that offered home-cooked meals. And this will give you some idea about the level of restaurants Kathy and I go to. When you get up and go to the cashier to pay your bill, there'll often be an end cap where you can buy the sauce that makes it taste that way. You can go to the grocery store and actually buy the prepackaged, pre-cooked meal so that you can, and make sure I've got this right, so that you can take home home-cooked food. And then if you don't have time for all of that, you can always order a pizza. And let me make sure I've got that right. You can order a pizza, go get it, and take out a pizza to eat at home. Maybe I'm overthinking it. With apologies to my friends who are in the world of finance, it used to be that we wanted to deal with a banker face to face. Deal with somebody who knew me, who knew my community, knew my situation, that if I needed a loan, I could explain my situation, we could talk together without losing my dignity. And now with ATM cards, with PC banking, you have the opportunity to do just about anything you want without ever being touched by human hands. Now, don't laugh at me, but I have just discovered the convenience of at-home depositing, where you can get a check, you load the app, you snap a picture with your phone, you hit a couple of buttons, and boom, the money is sent to your account. I don't want to put this image in your head, really, but it's banking in your pajamas. It doesn't get any less personal than that. And frankly, you know, it's not that I want to be Scrooge McDuck who swims in and out of his vaults of money, but every now and then, I want some assurance that my money really is my money and it's where I think it is. And that kind of takes me away from all of that. Did you know that for about $4,800, you can buy a robotic dog that never has to be taken out to find that golden blade of grass to receive its offering, and it will program itself to respond to the way you train it? Now, I will admit, walking the dog is not exactly an outing. However, I think too many people find themselves on therapist couches because they have spent their lives being programmed by other people to respond the way other people want them to respond. Owning a robotic dog and claiming you've got a relationship with that robotic dog may be the reality and the symbol of what it means to have an artificial life. I'm not so sure the radio announcer took the art out of artificial. We'd already been there. We'd already done that. We have distanced ourselves in meaningful relationships. We have prided ourselves on our ingenuity. We have so wrapped ourselves in things that are and always will be dead that what we call life is really artificial. And if the word artificial doesn't hit home, perhaps the word virtual will. And our virtual lives have wrapped us up in a shroud. But today, All Saints Sunday, today is about unwrapping that shroud. Isaiah's words are a wonderful affirmation of faith. God will destroy the shroud that is cast over all peoples, the sheet that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death forever. Then The Lord will wipe away the tears from all faces, and the sadness of his people he will take away from all the earth. For the Lord has spoken. Thus saith the Lord. For the Lord has spoken. It had been a pretty tough couple of days for Jesus. We think of the 12 disciples as having a distinct relationship with him, and I think that is probably true. But they're not the only people who loved Jesus, nor the only people he loved. There were others such as Lazarus and his sisters, Mary and Martha. Lazarus has become sick, and Jesus was asked to come. You're needed, Lord, please come. But he tarries for 2 days. And people have never known why. He seemed to be spending an awful lot of time at the office. He seemed to be overly concerned with the business of teaching, concerned about confronting the political realities of the movement that was starting to gain some traction. He seemed to be awfully interested in the people whose love for him is questionable at best. And even the disciples wonder, what's going on? Don't you want to go? This is important. Lazarus might die, you know. But Jesus did tarry for 2 whole days. And Lazarus did die, you know. And Jesus wept. When you really dig deep into the story, and by dig deep, you have to do some word studies and some word endings and that sort of thing. When you really dig deep into the story, you find out that the shortest verse of the Bible, Jesus wept, is not about Lazarus, although we so want it to be. You find out that it's not just about Mary and Martha, although we want the Lord of life to emphatically share their grief. Instead, you find out that Jesus wept for all of them, for Lazarus, for Mary and Martha, for the disciples, for the onlookers and the hangers-on, for Jerusalem herself, because the shroud of death still had all of them wrapped so tightly. Friends, I have come home angry from so many funerals that my wife encourages me to not go anymore, because I have heard too many people at funerals deny the reality of death. They want to say with piety dripping from their lips, this person is not dead, they are merely falling asleep in the Lord, which is an expression you can use if you read a lot of Pauline theology, but that is not the way of Jesus. Jesus did not deny the reality of death. We are confronted plainly with Martha's horror at the idea that Jesus would roll away the stone because after 4 days, her spiced but unembalmed brother's body clearly had begun to decay. Mary weeps, mourners cry, grief is absolutely everywhere. But beyond the power of that moment, there is something even more powerful going on, because what that moment does, it calls for a decision from everyone there and everyone who hears of that moment that will take us into one future or another. It's important to understand that this is the last miracle Jesus would perform in his public ministry. After the raising of Lazarus, he goes to Jerusalem, triumphal entry, Palm Sunday. He'll go to the temple where he will clear out the temple. He'll stay in the temple for a while where he teaches, and according to the Gospel of John, he stays there for quite a while, teaching on the kingdom, on life as the Lord of life intended it to be. He'll be arrested, he'll be tried, he'll be crucified, and the next miracle we will experience with Jesus is the resurrection. is Easter. But right now, we have a sign. The raising of Lazarus confronts life's journey with the decision whether you're going to go in the direction of God or you're going to go somewhere else. This miracle precipitates a crisis. It becomes the point at which a decision has to be made. Are you going to believe Jesus and feel the shroud of death and anxiety and worry and doubt begin to slip away? Or are you going to continue to be wrapped by that shroud of death and worry and anxiety and doubt? Has the Lord spoken, or has the Lord not spoken? Jesus went to the tomb. He had the stone rolled away. And he said with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." And like a wedge that is hammered between a piece of newly cut white oak, a wedge is hammered between that which is real and that which is artificial. Everyone who witnessed the miracle that day, everyone who hears of the miracle this day, must reconcile themselves to the same question. When God speaks, will God do what God says will be done? Is there integrity in the voice of God? Is there integrity in the ways of God? Or have we become so wrapped in the shroud that we really do believe there's another way? Lazarus, come out. And as he came, his feet still bound, his hands still bound, his face covered by the death napkin, he said to the people around them, "Unbind him. Let him go. Unbind him. Let him go." And friends, that's why we do what we do on this All Saints Sunday, why we name the names, why we light the candles. It is not only an acknowledgement that death no longer binds the ones that we love and care about. It's also an acknowledgement that death no longer binds us. The inevitability of it all is not the final word. We sense a letting go. In a deeply spiritual sense, we sense our own letting go. So friends, can you feel it? The wrapping starting to slip. The cast showing a crack or two. The healing which is not done, but is starting. The shroud slipping away. If you have any sense at all of that, let it go. Let it go and be unbound. Amen. God gave us memories because there are things that we need to hold on to, and there are things we need to let go of. And today we remember Doris Lengus Caldwell, who claimed the promise of the resurrection on March 17, 2018. We remember Carlton Johnson, who claimed the promise of the resurrection September 15, 2018. We remember Catherine Hudson Campbell, who claimed the promise of the resurrection September 25, 2018. We remember Alice Dooley, who claimed the promise of the resurrection October 4th, 2018. And we remember Dan Watson, who claimed the promise of the resurrection October 13th, 2018. And for the saints who are members of our family, the saints who are friends, saints who have been the light of love in Christ in our lives, remember and give thanks for Luther Danny Fry, father of Deneen Garcia, December 3rd, 2017. And you remember Barbies Ness, mother of John Ness, grandmother of Hannah, Sawyer, and Jack, January the 11th, 2018. We remember Barry Wayne Jordan, stepbrother of Emma Johnston, January 20th, 2018. We remember Ernest Maynard Jordan, step-grandfather of Emma Johnston, April 2nd, 2018. Remember Iris Flincham Harvey, mother of Pam Jones, April 24, 2018. We remember Sharon Swedlow, friend of Kim Ness, March 8, 2018. We remember Howard Ernest Morey Jr., father of Chris, grandfather of Catherine, William, and Bennett, May 11, 2018. We remember Wilma Huntington, sister-in-law of Helen Huntington, May of 2018. We remember Douglas G. Mann III, friend of Kaya Ford, May of 2018. We remember Brian Bowman, uncle of Emma Johnston, June 7, 2018. We remember Clarence Williams, father of Eddie Williams, June 29, 2018. We remember Ryan Hunter Massey, friend of Elizabeth Jenkins, July 13, 2018. We remember William Burkhart May, friend of B.J. Thomas, October 1st, 2018. We remember Bobby Clifton Dudley, father of Pam Burrell and Rhonda Cinder, October 26, 2018. And we remember the Reverend James W. Reynolds, a true saint of this church, as the founding pastor of Peakland United Methodist Church, October 30th, 2018.